Кто здесь? У. У. А кто тут? Здорово. Ну, не, я просто мимо шел. Не-не-не.
track guide of the Nürburgring, because I feel a review can be done quite quickly. I feel this is the best Nordschleife version we have to date in any of sim racing. AC1 was already good, but of course it's outdated. And I feel this brings it to a kind of new level. I feel there's more detail in the road, there's more bumps. It is super tricky to drive, but at the same time, it's also super rewarding if you get it right. It probably has the best environment, best looking environment. When you go through there on high graphic settings, it's just outright insane. So we're not going to do the review because this is the one. Okay, we're not have a better version, I'd say. So let's go into the track and really make it about what is actually different here. So we can skip most of the GP track, except for turn 1. And the only difference we really have here for turn 1 is that we carry a bit more speed on the main straight because we're coming from the Nordschleife, so we have a longer run on the straight. We're a couple kilometers up, so almost hitting 260 here, whereas we normally, I think we have like 250, so the breaking point is going to be a tiny bit earlier, which means when we previously used the 100-meter board, we're not going to use that now. There's more, well, wherever you want to look, but there's an exit road coming here from the left, and I guess the start of the exit road serves as a good break marker for you because, again, we carry a little more speed. The other thing is we probably want to stay a tiny bit tighter in turn 1, so let's go there because we have to change transition right after, again, really quickly for the left hand. It's probably best to view it in cockpit. And what I want you to focus on is just the transition from turning right to turning left. The car is really slow. The car sits really high with the right height limitations of 70 millimeters, which is the lowest compared to 50 that we have normally, which makes the car a little sluggish. So you as a driver have to be more aggressive. So I just want you to look at the steering and the transition from right to left, and that should be your major takeaway for the corner. Right, you see I'm just really aggressive there. Bit of sliding with TC off, which is, in the end of the day, is going to be a bit faster, but for most of you, this should not be any concern. This is only when you go for the super fast esports times in the low 8-minute 4-3-2, whatever they can manage. So this is your takeaway here. Break a tiny bit earlier for turn 1, take it a bit tighter to open up the left-hander, transition really aggressively into the left-hander because the car is sluggish, sits very high, and you need to force it around. Then we can already skip quite a few corners, actually, because the other thing that changes is the chicane. Because now they've added a new curb, new higher curb, which is harder to pass. So we also have to break a tiny bit earlier. Maybe before it was the 50 board, maybe it's now the 55, 60 meter mark, something like that. But you'll better see it if we roll forward into the corner here. And now we're just going to quickly pause and have a look where this curb actually is, this new one. And if we go close, then you can see this one is really high and disturbing, and not even the car sitting at 70 millimeter can safely clear it. So you're best off not taking it at all. The difference is that before or previously on the GP track, we will still be able to use whatever is on the left side here, the several plates stacked upon one another. But now the chicane is a bit tighter, so we need to go a tiny bit slower, turn in a tiny bit later. That is the major thing you want to consider here on entry. The more interesting part is if we go for the exit on the turn, where now we have the problem that we're going to be on the left side here going right, and we need to be on the other side. So again, like in turn 1, 2, we have to be super aggressive with the transition here. So if you look from, probably this perspective might serve it best, we are going to swerve across to the right in a very aggressive fashion and then straighten up the car aggressively. Just the moment we are straight, we're going to be straight with the steering wheel for a brief moment in time as well. And this is when we can hit the brakes aggressively with all 4 tires kind of equally loaded, or at least the left and the right equally loaded. And automatically, when you do the transition really as aggressive as you can, this automatically also kind of becomes your breaking point, right? So as soon as you make it over to the other side, this is also your braking marker, because seriously, if we zoom out a bit, there's nothing else to really see here. This white line is certainly too early, so we can't really use that. So it's a bit of a time feeling. And as soon as you start doing the chicane there consistently, then I think you'll start getting the breaking point for the actual entry onto the Nordschleife, right? Now, what's there to know about this corner? And there's probably something about this corner that we'll see repetitive or repeatedly across the track, which is that there's a bit of banking, a little uphill. And what uphill usually means is that the car will keep slowing down as you go into the corner. So if we just kind of take a look at the speed I'm carrying, the brake is going to be away now. The speed just keeps decreasing, because now we're going uphill. The other problem is, and we'll see this better if we zoom out a tiny bit, we're coming across the hill here and then the track flattens. So pretty much here is when we've climbed the height and then the car is going to get loose just as we kind of enter the actual Nordschleife, which makes your rear end very, very loose, which is why you'll also see me kind of respect that a bit in my throttle pedal input here. Just have to wait for the car to settle again coming over this crest before I can commit to the throttle aggressively. Which usually means we'll be sliding here if the TC is off. So again, for most of you, probably it's fine to just drive with the TC on, okay? We're talking tenths over the course of the full lap here, which is for most of you not going to be a concern. And with the TC off, you're much more likely to crash on this track, which is your #1 priority. Then we are looking for the next breaking point. I'll try to make this quickly here. We are going to take a bit of a swerve here, just widen the entry a bit. And what we are looking out for, just roll forward a bit, there's the wall. And then you can see where both white lines cross or where they become one. And this in the cockpit is going to be kind of my marker. I know we can't see it right now, but as I approach that, I know. Let's roll it backward and you can see it a little better. Just look at where those lines kind of come together. This is my marker for the corner. Shift down a second, and then we'll talk about where we place the apex in the next second, which is kind of really nicely done. And it's quite easy for you to aim for that. Where you want to be the most inside in that corner is where kind of the white line goes away from the inside curb. So this should be easy as a rough reference where you want to be the tightest in the corner, and then the white line goes back to the curb, which tells you, well, we don't want to be there anymore. Then we should have sorted that. Now stay a bit tight, then we go wide again because we want to have that entry into the corner. You can already see it as we approach it here, I think. So I'll play it just one more time really quickly. And we'll make it slowly. What I want you to look out for is that here is a bump. Okay, there's a bump. You could see it probably once we roll the replay forward, that there's just going to be some or a lot of bumpiness here. And if you go too wide and if you try your turn in just over that bump, then the car might not respond. So you have to learn all these bumps on the track as well, because they do affect if you're making a corner or not. This corner here could be flat if you get the turn in right and if you go to the inside early enough. And that is actually a bit of a, yeah, kind of weird thing. We'll have that more often on the Nordschleife. Often on the outside, there's just not enough grip. For some reason, in this track version, we don't have a too pronounced ideal line, right? So we can't really rely on where the grip is visually. We'll have to find that, which is probably what a lot of you are still kind of struggling with right now. But if you, in this corner, kind of turn in what feels too early, then you're most likely to find the grip in this one, right? So turning into here, and then sometimes you can just help yourself get the car further to the inside by doing a bit of a short shifting in that corner. Just gives the car a tiny bit of a pause where the front might get some extra bite, and then you'll kind of be able to force the car to the inside and stay there. Also, a good note here for the Nordschleife is that Kuno seems to have reduced the kind of bumpiness of the grass. So in quite a few places, you can just run onto the grass without really jumping around as we're used to on many of the other tracks. So don't be too afraid when you cut across the car to the in that corner. Just give the car further in what feels too early. Then you sometimes shifting in that, stay there. It seems to have reduced. You can also go force the car to the inside and stay there. Also, a good note here for the Nordschleife is that in a lot of places it's going to be fine. I'll tell you if it's not. Then we try to go wide again, and where's the brake marker here? It is for me, and maybe something for you back of your head. Do not copy the pros 101. So I'll say this here. This is where I am braking. This is where the pros are going to brake. You probably for yourself just want to add a couple meters extra for braking because it's most likely going to be a bit of a risky thing if you're hyper aggressive like the pros, and if you make the tiniest mistakes, well, then you're suddenly out of room. So add a bit of margin to whenever pro tells you where to kind of brake, add margin. Tiny bit. A meter can be enough. For some people, it might be 5 or something, but 5 meters at high speeds is, well, less than a tenth usually. So these very tiny adjustments can already help you. So if I tell you my braking marker is the beginning of the curb, then you use that as well, but you brake a tiny bit earlier, right? Maybe kind of add the amount of time you need to blink and then brake that tiny bit earlier. So we'll slow down. And you can see already this corner is heavily banked, which is going to push us a little to the inside. And then as we go through the left-hander, you can see there's a bump in the middle where we want to have the car in as much of a neutral state as possible, which means we want to go straight. We don't want to be aggressive on the brake. Maybe we even give a little bit of stabilizing throttle. We want to be neutral in the steering. And then just go over this little crest here, and then we fall into the right-hander, which again has the banking into the other direction. And all these things you really need to be aware of and take into account when you're driving through these corners. So over the crest, and then kind of as the car falls into the bagging, this is when we can commit to the steering. In the BMW, one of the most planted cars, I'd say, in these conditions on this track. It's really stable. You can be really aggressive. You definitely want to be on that right side curb here a lot, and you can see where the slowest speed in that corner actually is, right? We're slowing down pretty much through the entire corner. Bit of a moment here because I was really aggressive. And then the other bit is you can go wide, but then you get trouble in the next corner. So your target is through that right-hander to somewhat stay middle of the track to get a good swing into the left-hander here. This curb on the left, do not touch. It is going to cause issues. You'll bottom out, you'll lose control of the car, and even if you're not crashing, you just lose control where you're placing the car. So just stay away from that. Aim for a late apex for this one. Again, we're going through a banking, coming over a crest. The car is going to get light here, which means we have to take a tiny bit of care knowing that the car has some vulnerability coming over it, and the grip is only going to return once the car settles, maybe a couple tenths after going over the crest. Turn through the right here, grab all the curb you can. You can even touch the grass there if we go a little behind the car. You can just go take that curb here head on right away. Even if you go through the sand, it's not going to upset the car too much. Also, the angle that you're having the curb is usually not an issue, at least for the BMW. It wasn't for the other cars. So I guess this one is fine. Attack that right-hander. It opens up the left. The next problem, and this track is full of problems that we need to solve, is we again have kind of a crest in the middle of these two turns. And most cars at that speed, they will kind of bump into this crest in the middle of these two corners, which is again a situation where you want to have as neutral steering as possible, let the car bounce, land, and then you commit to the left-hander, where we just want to use a little bit of the curb. You can't climb it entirely. It's going to be too bouncy. Take a bit of it. And then there's, I'd say the kind of slowest point in the corner is also in the middle. On the exit here, don't be afraid to take that curb as well, but make sure you're leaving the curb before the grass starts, because that thing here caught me out a few times already, where the rear just kind of digs into it and then you spin to the left, and will be very tricky situation. Same thing as we had in the kind of GP chicane. We want to transition over to the right quite quickly and aggressively, straighten the car up, and then just as we're on the left side, pretty much that's already the time we want to brake. Maybe there's a little more marker if we just look where the ideal line kind of becomes a bit more dark. If you can see that, depends a bit on the graphic settings if that's going to be a viable option for you, but where the track over the ideal line gets darker, a couple of meters into that, could be the braking marker. And then there's a bit of rolling into that corner, really very low trail braking, back onto the power quickly, because that curb pulls the front end to the inside. You easily get oversteer over that curb and want to be careful with the throttle here. Stabilize the car a bit. And you can kind of go wide, and the left-hander is opening up, so you don't really have to prepare it. So line-wise in this corner, we are not really doing a compromise, right? A compromise would be we kind of stay in the middle of the track, open up the left-hander, but there's no need to do that. The left-hander is so wide, opens up so much, we can just go take speed here, go all the way to the curb, and we'll easily manage the left-hander afterwards. Let's move forward quickly to what, well, I'm not familiar yet with all corner names. Let's just face the reality here. But this is the Flugplatz, or, well, airfield probably in English, which in some of the cars can be flat. Depends on the setup. If you go really aggressive, it's going to cause trouble elsewhere. I guess for all the setups I did for the other cars, Audi, Porsche, there's going to be a bit of a lift. Thankfully, we are not jumping over this one here, and now there's still some time to turn in. Same as with the section, which I think it's Hatzenbach earlier, where I said you need to do a kind of the early turn in to find the grippy line. If you turn in late here, the front is not going to bite. So just directly aim for the first curb there, go there flat out, and only once you are getting towards the curb, only once you've done the turn in, you can see I'm doing a bit of throttle management there, just a tiny bit of a lip to make sure to get the car really to the inside, because that's where the grip is, and you'll exponentially feel the car biting more the further to the inside you get. And then just roll through the first area towards the first apex even, and then you can already floor it. The car should be sorted by now and be able to pull all the way through flat out. Also, don't be scared of the exit here. The grass is not as bumpy. There's no problem if you put 1 or 2 tires into the grass. Just be aware it is less grip, but it's not going to kind of send the car flying. Then we go really fast to what is going to be the new fastest corner, well, I think in all of ACC. And I already forgot the name again. So maybe the comment section can go bonkers with that. I think I'll just prepare a map. And also, if you go to Popometer, you will see all corner names for all the different sections, so you can learn from that. This one is going to be flat in a lot of cars. Some cars won't be able to. So in many cars, just turn into the corner flat, and once the front end bites, you'll lift the throttle again just a tiny bit. Don't do a full lift, you will die. Do is less grip, but it's not going to kind of send the car flying. Which in some of the cars can be flat. Depends on the setup. If you go really aggressive, it's going to cause trouble elsewhere. I guess for all the setups I did for the other cars, Audi, Porsche, there's going to be a bit of a lift. Thankfully, we are not jumping over this one here, and now there's still some time to turn in. Same as with the section, which I think it's Hatzenbach earlier, where I said you need to do a kind of the early turn in to find the grippy line. If you turn in late here, the front is not going to bite. So just directly aim for the first curb there, go there flat out, and only once you are getting towards the curb, only once you've done the turn in, you can see I'm doing a bit of throttle management there, just a tiny bit of a lip to make sure to get the car really to the inside, because that's where the grip is, and you'll exponentially feel the car biting more the further to the inside you get. And then just roll through the first area towards the first apex even, and then you can already floor it. The car should be sorted by now and be able to pull all the way through flat out. Also, don't be scared of the exit here. The grass is not as bumpy. There's no problem if you put 1 or 2 tires into the grass. Just be aware it is less grip, but it's not going to kind of send the car flying. Then we go really fast to what is going to be the new fastest corner, well, I think in all of ACC. And I already forgot the name again. So maybe the comment section can go bonkers with that. I think I'll just prepare a map. And also, if you go to Popometer, you will see all corner names for all the different sections, so you can learn from that. This one is going to be flat in a lot of cars. Some cars won't be able to. So in many cars, just turn into the corner flat, and once the front end bites, you'll lift the throttle again just a tiny bit. Don't do a full lift, you will die. Do a 20, 30, 50% lift, something like that, just to kind of give the car a bit of room to take the corner. but do not lift completely. The BMW here is fine to actually take a flat. It's going to kind of start over on the steering. It's going to kind of move a bit around in that corner. Don't be scared of that. It's gonna be fine most of the time, end of the day. And then the braking marker really is just the end of the curb on the left here. This is when we need to slam it in the BMW, approaching it with almost 280. Some other cars that might need to lift just do 275 or 270. They can maybe brake a tiny bit later. Porsche, I guess, was just slightly after the end of the curb. Tiny bit of a difference, not too much, but just use the end of the curb in most cars, I guess, as a start. Then for this very long corner, we can, well, okay, I thought I had fast forward, but that was the actual speed. Let's slow it down a bit. We just roll into that one and keep trailing very deep into the corner. It's a long one, and then you can mostly, due to the banking, floor the throttle quite aggressively quite early, go a bit over the curb, and then under this bridge is actually the end of the first sector. You'll get the first sector time, which should be 247, 248 on a really, really good lap. I guess slower for the majority of you. Then we go down on towards the Fuchsröhre, which is the compression, and then is one of the most tricky sections of the circuit ahead. All this here is flat. We gravitate towards the outside. This shield here on the shield, this sign on the right there, what is actually on there? Oh, warns motorcyclists that they are likely to crash. Well, I can tell you this is true for cars as well. And this is the marker pretty much. And just after we pass the board, or yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like it's disappearing from you, but you're already preparing for the corner. So that board kind of tells you, well, a literal warning, but this is also the place and time where you just hit the brake ever so slightly, shift down a gear perhaps, and then you're already back on throttle, stabilizing the car, right? We're coming at a high speed over the crest, take all the curb, that's no problem. And now an issue, because I'm using the shadow that we're just passing as a braking marker, and I don't really see anything else. Maybe you can take this big tree. Maybe you can take this detail in the fence where there's a triangle supporting the beam. That could be your markers for braking. But for me right now, at 11 a.m. at least, the shadow does a good job as a marker to slam the brakes. And then we are already moving on to the right-hander, in which we're going to trail. Just roll the car into it. We can go wide here, no problem. And then the braking marker, or the reference point, is just kind of those zebra stripes there. Just that we actually hit the brake a tiny bit earlier. So let's see where I do it. I'm kind of looking at that, and well, when they are about to hit the dash, tiny bit earlier maybe. If we look from above, we are still a good 2-3 car length away from the zebra stripe, but maybe it's just where kind of the end of this small straight here in between, right? There's cornering, then it's straight from here to here. And I guess just where this straight stops being a straight again and the radius starts for the left-hander, that could also work good as a braking marker. Now, the kind of tricky stuff here is that you want to let the car run wide a bit. Not too wide, I think, because you're not getting the turn in again. Try to stay tight through this. Open up the right-hander afterwards. Important, right? So don't go wide through this one. Stay tight. Stay very tight. Be patient. Don't go kind of across the middle of the track pretty much as a rough reference. Widen your entry for this one. Aim for late apex. And then we are going for the next session. Again, I can't go into too much depth here, but because we'll never finish the track guide, and I've been challenged to do it in under an hour, I'm not too sure we're actually going to manage. Very interesting section here. We cannot do the next corner flat out, but we also, in most cars, will not need to brake. A little bit of just coasting, rolling into it is going to be fine. And then once we're in the corner, we actually want to be on the curb on the inside. If you hit it, it kind of pulls the car in, gives you an over rotation. So make sure you slow down early enough so you can be on throttle in the turn, which is hopefully what I'm doing here. Just a bit of a lift, and then manage the throttle. So you always have a car on the exit. Well, this one, well, there somewhat is. The problem with this one is it's actually way too short. The car is still at an angle, still going towards the outside. So when we actually need the curb, there's grass. So make sure you take a bit of caution there. Maybe don't go as aggressive as I did here on this hot lap. Then there is a good way to find the braking marker for this one, actually. And that, well, it's tough to see here. Maybe we see it from above, tiny bit better. The other track, but end of curb, there's a bit of ideal line starting. I don't know if the compression of the video is going to take that away, right, as a braking marker, or you just use. In the case of the BMW, I'm not sure I manage it. Every lap is still a bit different here. Don't clip the curb ideally. And then the right-hander is opening up again, so we don't really have to do a big compromise here. We can go, then we, often than not, it's going to be fine to do that corner. Again, where's the marker for this one? There are two signs on the left, and maybe this is a good place where we can talk about kind of the grand scheme of things of that track, where it's easier to learn if you think in kind of repetitive sections. So what we're getting here is a bit of a chicane and then into a slow turn. And we are getting these kind of slow turns at least a second time, which kind of follows the same pattern of how you have to drive them. The only thing you have to remember is that we're starting with the slow one, and then we're going to have the same corner again later on the track, just a faster one. But we'll get there. And this happens with two other parts of the track, I think, as well. So let's see. Then, which makes it easier to remember, the brake marker here pretty much, again, is the kind of warning board there, where once motorcyclists, they will die. Same is true for the cars. But this kind of serves for me as a braking marker. I'm behaving towards it, but I think being actually on the brake is going to be quite a bit earlier. There you go. There I'm hitting the pedal just before that board kind of is threatening to leave my field of view. So that works. And if we zoom out where I hit the brake, it's pretty much actually the first board, right? So there's always a bit of a perspective thing as to what you're focusing on, what you're using as a reference, and where you're actually braking. So yeah, that's the reference board, but where we're braking is the board that we've just passed. Then for this corner, you can kind of aim middle of the track, right? We don't aim for the first curb. We don't want to stay wide for too long. We aim middle of the track, kind of. And then we go for the apex in the second half of the corner here for a single late apex. If we watch that from above, the line then is pretty much coming around here. Just one late apex. That's the target, what we're doing here. When you're driving, it can be quite difficult to assess what you've done there. So I encourage you to go to popometer.io, where you are going to have a free Nordschleife pack if you just sign up. That's it. You just sign up, gonna get a free data pack, and then you'll be able to compare. Of course, it's not always going to be the same car, but you get the idea, hopefully. And then you can compare your lines, your input, repeat later. Swerve over to, we have a bit of a thing in between. Now, swerve over to the right, important. Fast swing to the left. Be aggressive with the steering, okay? Being aggressive with the steering is important. If you give the car too much time, it's going to understeer out of the corner. Throw the car to the inside here. Be aggressive. Use the banking. Don't be too afraid of the curb. Don't hit it too much. You can just about clip it. It's going to be fine. And the compression is going to pull the car around so massively. There's no issue not taking this flat. There shouldn't be a problem making the corner, okay? Depends on the setup, of course, how aggressive you actually are in the steering. Sometimes, if you feel you need to lift, if the speed is too high, don't lift fully. Lift halfway to stay alive, okay? We want to just stop the car from being forced too much around, from needing too much grip. If you lift a tiny bit, it's mostly going to be fine, but if you lift completely, you're going to lose the rear end. Then gravitate towards the left. Now this one is really interesting. Again, we could have a marker on the left, but your eyes are already pinned to the right. So it's kind of difficult to... that's supposed to be an eye, but I'm... well, that's absolutely not an eye. Is that an eye? Can I paint an eye? Oh, this is a better eye. Okay. Your eye is actually going to look for the corner already. So using the edge of the curb there as a brake mark is probably an issue. If anything, we can roll it back a little, and here maybe you can make up your mind. This is where the curb is coming, but now you should start focusing really on to where the track is going and just kind of keep this in the back of your mind. And then there's going to be just down a gear, not too harsh braking. We don't need to lose a lot of speed for this one. and make sure you kind of go really close to the first apex here. We want to almost hit that. And then we hit the second one, which is going to be, yeah, kind of, if you hit the first one, it's very unlikely you'll be too tight for the second one, just of how the corner is shaped and how the speed develops. You can see this first, oh, let's move here. This first right-hander is a much wider corner than the second one. So when you clip the first one here, it's kind of a late apex, and then you just keep rolling, the car will automatically lose the amount of speed you need to lose to be slow enough for that second right-hander. And then if we look at the third curb, that is already a wider corner again. So the slowest point in the corner, the tightest point in the corner, is going to be somewhere here on that second apex. And once you clip that, and even you see I'm already full throttle, when you know you're making that second apex, then you can floor the throttle and the car will easily stay on the track here. Now we're again going to look for a braking point, and there's various options here. There's a board on the left, but for me personally, it just seems there's a dark patch in the middle of the road somewhere here. And when you're driving, you definitely see that. So let me roll it back a tiny bit and go for full speed, just so you can see the braking marker fly towards you, but the board is just equally fine and probably the more reliable option. But there's the dark patch that I'm using kind of for the brake, and then it is going to be super aggressive initially, but the more we approach the corner, the more we have to ease off the brake because the ABS will just be overwhelmed a tiny bit, and we want to stay in charge of the car, be able to place it. And if you're committed to the brake 100%, then you'll probably not be able to steer the car. You're just going to kind of understeer in whatever direction, but you won't be able to place it. So again, when I tell you this is my braking marker, you add a couple meters extra and you'll be fine. Then this one, super interesting corner. I think they call it Wehrseiten. I don't even know what a translation would be. It's something with soap in the end, which kind of makes sense because it's slippery. And then we break through that first apex here. And the interesting part is we kind of do a double apex in this left-hander here. So let's view it from above and you can see, okay. This is probably a perspective that should be helpful with you. The first one is definitely not as tight as the second one. So the line we're going to do is kind of we break through this here. We go a bit wide here. We have a turn in here. Have a second apex there. Probably want to think just Laguna Seca turn 1. I'd say so, right? And the main pattern here that I want you to remember when we talk about the next section is that we're coming from a straight. We have a right king through which we're kind of braking. Then comes a tight left-hander. And then a right-hander again. The same thing is going to repeat just in the next corner. There shouldn't be a problem making the corner, okay? Depends on the setup, of course, how aggressive you actually fully 4, 5 left be an eye, but this is a better eye. As a brake a little, now you should, and not too hard, really close. And then we hit the second one, which is just, we want to almost hit that close to the first apex here. We want to almost hit that. And then we hit the second one, which is going to be, yeah, kind of, if you hit the first one, it's very unlikely you'll be too, this first, the car will, second right hand, lowest point apex. When you know you're making that second apex, then you can floor. Again, going to look for a brake. It just seems there's a dark patch in the middle of the road. Let me see the reliable up. It is going to be super aggressive and the ABS will just be overwhelmed a tiny bit, and we want to stay in charge of the car, be able to steer the place it. Be Siphon, which kind of, and the interesting part is you can see it's definitely we go Laguna Seca. I want you to read through same thing whenever things mirror, so this one is the right wide apex, so slow down, slowest point, throttle through the second apex, and then usually the right-hander here opens up so much we don't have to worry about track limits on the exit here. Now what I mean is, again, we're coming on a straight, we're doing a flat-out right-hander, and we're gonna just brake again for a kind of double left that is slowing down. And so like for me, this is like the corner before, just a bit faster, if you will. The braking point, I'm just braking tiny bit after the end of the curb here. Towards pretty much the apex of the first one here, and then it is already time to put the power down again. Don't use the curb on the exit here. I think if you don't have enough time to bring the car back to the inside, so we don't really want to go too wide. Maybe just towards the curb, maybe even tighter is better. The grip is a bit sketchy here. The car gets quite loose. And then quickly bring it back over to the left. And then it is how you find the brake corner is the middle of that, okay? The middle of this small straight patch. That is your marker. I don't see anything else really. There's a white flag on the right, but I don't know. Doesn't really work well for me personally. So let's go back a tiny bit just so you can see what I mean with that short straight. Let's go forward, coming around the corner, and you see pretty much from here, it is going to be straight. And this is where the curb ends, and the middle of that, that is going to be my brake marker. So this is how I deduct it, right? Go through the corner, straight from here, end of curb there, middle of that is going to be my braking marker. We have a visitor. Hello. Don't shift here, just a bit of braking, and then this is one of the weirdest corners, most tricky corners on the track. We want to zoom out here just a tiny bit to get an idea. First thing, it's going uphill, and then it's going even more uphill, so it's super very, very steep elevation, which means it slows the car down, which means we want to enter the corner faster than we feel comfortable doing because the car is going to lose so much speed through this corner, which is also why we barely need to brake for it. It's all crazy on this track. Barely doing down. Don't shift here, just a bit of braking, which is also and then the very important things: do not clip the curb, very dangerous. And when you go on throttle here, you're barely not going to accelerate. Then we come over a crest where the car is going to be light. So by that point in time, we want to have the majority of rotation done, because once you come over the crest, you will not be able to rotate the car. It's very easy to lose the grip here. So if we zoom out once more, just have a look from here, right? You see the banking, it pulls you in, still pulling you into the corner. You can go onto the throttle, and then we're coming over this crest here where the banking stops and the car kind of becomes light. And this is the point in time where you have to have a lot of the rotation done, because the front end is not going to bite. Then when it does again, the rear end loses grip. So we are not in a position where the car is able to corner a lot. So make sure you have somewhat of a late apex there, and the car's almost straight for that exit. Now we have a tiny bit of time, but though, even if you're not getting this exit right, don't worry, the straight after this is not too long. And now we're going into the section that is kind of a repetition of an earlier section. So again, a very aggressive turn into the left here. There's plenty of grip for this one. Pin it to the left quickly again. And then my brake marker is, well, now made it too far. My brake marker is this Yokohama board on the right. But again, if we slow it down, we'll probably see that I'm braking a tiny bit earlier than that. That is going to be the brake marker. And why I say this is a repeat section, but faster, is that it again has this late apex where the second part of the corner is kind of becoming narrower, right? So this is something we've seen earlier, just now that it's a tiny bit faster than the first time we went through this section. But so you can do it exactly the same way, just in a gear higher, essentially. And you're, again, just going to stay somewhat middle of the track into this turn. Then you're coming to the inside here, right? This is your apex. And then you'll have a good amount of exit speed here with a straight exit, not a lot of rotation needed anymore, right? If we just, that corner is what, 100 degrees or something? We want to have 90 degrees done of that by the end here, and only a couple degrees left going onto the straight. If you're in the cockpit, there is another good kind of marker in that corner where we're going into this, and you'll see the curb shift changing at some point. We're going to go wide here, and then when you see kind of this edge of the curb there where it seems like it's becoming tighter, afterwards is where you kind of want to have that apex, just passing that edge here. And then our apex should be right after that, which is also when the exit curb kind of comes into the frame. I believe I actually lost some time here on that lap. Yeah, that is costly. Try not to do this, because it does look nice, but it's definitely going to cost you time coming. We're kind of sliding off the curb here into the grass. The car bounces, stops accelerating, and you're going to lose a lot of time this time around because now we have a long straight ahead of us. So make sure this exit needs to be picture perfect. Okay, this is your most important exit on the entire track because any speed to time by the exit, not it's something we've said. It again has this brake marker section. So again, a very aggressive turn into the left here. There's plenty of grip for this one. Pin it to the left quickly again. And then my brake marker is, well, now made it too far. My brake marker is this Yokohama board on the right. But again, if we slow it down, we'll probably see that I'm braking a tiny bit earlier than that. That is going to be the brake marker. And why I say this is a repeat section, but faster, is that it again has this late apex where the